Plus 2 Chemistry online classes. In the last class, we studied about some of the properties of D block elements. Today, in this video, we will discuss about properties like catalytic activity, alloy formation and standard electrode potentials. Now, we are going to discuss about the property of catalytic activity. Usually, compounds of transition metals show catalytic property, that is, they act as catalyst. The compounds made from transition metals are used as catalysts in many syntheses. Why they are acting as catalyst? It is because of their ability to form multiple oxidation states that we have studied already. They have the ability to form multiple oxidation states. So they act as catalyst. Examples are vanadium pentoxide. What is vanadium pentoxide? It is V2O5. This is vanadium pentoxide. It is used in contact process. Contact process means the industrial preparation of sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid. The catalyst vanadium pentoxide is used in the contact process, that is the industrial preparation of sulfuric acid. Next example is finely divided iron, which is used in Haber process, or it is known as Haber-Bosch process. It is a synthesis of ammonia, that is in nitrogen fixation. In nitrogen fixation we need ammonia, natural nitrogen fixation. Fixation process. The Haber process means the synthesis of ammonia. In that synthesis, we use the catalyst finely divided iron. The next example is nickel. Transition metal nickel is used in catalytic hydrogenation. Nickel, palladium, platinum. These three metals can be used for catalytic hydrogenation. Catalytic hydrogenation means the breaking down of double and triple bond. For breaking this double and triple bond, we use the catalyst like nickel, palladium and platinum. They are used in catalytic hydrogenation. That the catalyst will get regenerated at the end of the reaction, and also the main function of a catalyst is that it lowers the activation energy. For the first point, consider V2O5, vanadium pentoxide. If it is a catalyst, it will get regenerated after the reaction, and the function is like it lowers the activation energy. How it lowers the activation energy? Let's check. If we are not using a catalyst, consider here energy and here time. Okay. If we are not using a catalyst, the activation energy will be this much. But when we use as a catalyst in a reaction, it lowers the activation energy. That is what I told you. That means it lowers the activation energy from here to here. The energy that we give to speed up the reaction got decreased. That is, the activation energy will lower when we are using a catalyst. Now look how a catalyst acts. Consider this as a catalyst on which there are many atoms. Consider this as a catalyst. If there is a reacting molecule, consider this as a reacting molecule. We are going to study how a catalyst acts. When a catalyst reacts with a reacting molecule, what happens is this: there are two things that happen. The bond between the reacting molecules gets broken. The bond weakens, the bond between the reacting molecule weakens, and second thing is that a strong bond will be made in between the reacting molecule and the catalyst. That means you can see this is a reacting molecule. The bond between the reacting molecules gets weakened, and there occurs a strong bond between the atoms of the reacting molecule and the atoms of the catalyst. This is how a catalyst acts. Now let's look at this example. Iron 3 acts as a catalyst between the reaction of iodide and persulfate. This is the equation. 2I minus plus persulfate gives I2 plus 2SO4 2 minus. Here the iron in the 3 oxidation state acts as a catalyst. Let's look how it acts as a catalyst. The catalyst is 2Fe3 plus. It will first react with the I minus plus 2I minus gives I2 plus 2Fe2 plus. That is 3 plus 2, 2 plus. Next, this Fe2 plus that we got in the above reaction will react with the persulfate. S2O8 2 minus, and that we will get 2SO4 2 minus plus what? 2Fe3 plus. This is how the catalyst iron 3 reacts in this reaction. 2Fe3 plus 2I minus will react first to give I2 plus 2Fe2 plus. Fe3 plus goes to the Fe2 plus state. The oxidation state changes, and that Fe2 plus reacts with persulfate S2O8 2 minus, and you will get 2SO4 2 minus and 2Fe3 plus. That is, the catalyst that we used here got regenerated at the end of the reaction. The end of a catalytic reaction, the catalyst will get regenerated. The next property that we are going to discuss is alloy formation. What is an alloy? It's a blend of metals prepared by mixing of certain components. It's a blend of metals that is prepared by the mixing of components. It's known as an alloy. And an alloy is usually homogeneous solid mixtures. They are homogeneous solid mixtures. Why it's called so homogeneous solid mixtures? We know that transition elements are similar in size, that we have already studied. They are similar in size. So we can replace a metal by another metal in a crystal lattice or in a solid solution. Hence we can form alloy. That is, transition metals form alloys because of their similarity in size. We can replace one metal by another to form alloys. The main property of alloys are they are very hard. They are harder, and also they are good conductors of electricity and have high melting point. Alloys are usually hard. They have high melting point and are conductors of electricity. The example of alloys are ferrous alloys. Ferrous alloys. Metals like manganese, molybdenum, iron, etc. are used for making steels and stainless steels. Ferrous alloy is an example, and for making steels and stainless steels we use transition metals. Also transition metals plus non-transition metals are also used in alloys. Transition plus non-transition metals. For example, brass. That means copper plus zinc we use for brass. Zinc is considered as a non-transition element and copper is a transition element. Combination of copper and zinc is brass. And also you may have heard bronze. Bronze also copper plus tin. Copper plus tin. A combination of copper and tin will give bronze. Combination of copper and zinc is brass. These are the examples of alloys. Usually transition metals show alloy formation. Alloy is what? It's a blend of metals prepared by mixing of certain components. They are usually homogeneous solid mixtures. Why we call them as homogeneous solid mixtures? Because transition elements have similarity in their sizes. They are equal in their sizes, almost equal in their sizes. So we can replace one metal from a homogeneous solution by another metal. So they are called as homogeneous solid mixtures, and they usually are very hard, have high melting point, and are usually conductors. And also examples are ferrous alloys, and also there are compounds like transition metal plus non-transition metals form alloys. Example are bronze and brass. In brass, copper and zinc is used, and in bronze, copper and tin is used, tannum, Sn. A very important topic that we need to discuss is electrode potential. Electrode potential can be defined as a sum total of oxidation potential and reduction potential. We have already studied about ionization enthalpy. What is ionization enthalpy? It is the amount of energy that is required to remove the most loosely bound electron in its gaseous state. The energy that we supply to remove an electron from the gaseous state. We can predict the stability of an oxidation state by ionization enthalpy. If the ionization enthalpy is low for a metal in one of its oxidation state, then that oxidation state is considered to be stable. Look at the ionization enthalpy of second ionization enthalpy of nickel. It is 2.49 into 10 power 3 kilojoule per mole. For platinum it is 2.66 into 10 power 3 kilojoule per mole. Look at the two values, which is high. 2.66 is high and 2.49 is low. So, nickel, second oxidation state of nickel means what? Nickel 2 plus. And for platinum also it is platinum 2 plus. That is the meaning of second ionization enthalpy. Nickel 2 plus, the value is low. Hence nickel 2 plus is more stable than platinum 2 plus. Comparingly, with the platinum and nickel, nickel 2 plus is more stable. That means nickel can give 2 electrons easily compared to platinum. But now look at the fourth ionization enthalpy of nickel. It is 11.29, and for platinum it is 9.36. That means nickel, here it is in 4 plus oxidation state, and platinum in 4 plus oxidation state. Here platinum 4 plus is more stable than nickel 4 plus. For transition elements in general, we can say that ionization enthalpy determines the stability of the complexes. But in aqueous solutions, the stability of the oxidation state of a compound is determined by the term electrode potential. As I said, it is the sum total of oxidation potential plus reduction potential. As I have said, the stability of transition metals in aqueous solutions depends upon electrode potential. The electrode potential values mainly depend upon 3 factors. The first factor is enthalpy of sublimation or enthalpy of atomization, which is represented by delta H sublimation or delta H atomization. What is meant by enthalpy of atomization? We have already studied, isn't it? What is that? The energy that is required to break the bonds in an element or in a compound is called as enthalpy of atomization. Next is enthalpy of hydration. It's a new term. What is enthalpy of hydration? The amount of energy that is released when a metal forms a bond with a water molecule, with H2O. The amount of energy released when a metal forms a bond with water is called as enthalpy of hydration. Next factor is what we have discussed, ionization enthalpy. These 3 factors are dependent on the stability of a metal in its aqueous solutions. Hence, total enthalpy change, delta H, will be the sum of enthalpy of sublimation plus ionization enthalpy plus the hydration enthalpy. These two enthalpies are the energy required, and the delta H hydration is the energy released. It will be usually negative. The energy released will be usually negative, and these two values will be usually positive. These are the three factors that depends upon the electrode potential values. The higher negative the delta H value, the element in its that oxidation state will be more stable. The higher negative the delta H value, that is the total enthalpy change, that much highly stable will be that element in the aqueous solution. Now let's look at the 3D series. In the 3D series, the E0 values for all the elements except copper is negative. Except copper is negative. For copper it is 0.34 volt. It is 0.34 volt. It is highly positive. Why? We studied that the total enthalpy change is the sum total of what? Delta H of ionization enthalpy plus delta H of atomization or the sublimation plus hydration enthalpy, delta H of hydration. We studied that these two enthalpies are the energy required, and this is the energy released energy. In the case of copper, the delta H hydration will be highly negative, and this high value is not able to be compensated by the other enthalpies. Hence, the value for copper is highly positive. This is the reason why the E0 value of copper is highly positive, while all other 3D elements it is highly negative. Next important point is for Mn, zinc and nickel, that is for manganese, zinc and nickel, the M2 plus bar M electrode potential value is more negative. It is unexpectedly more negative. Why so? Let's look. The configuration of manganese is 3d5 4s2. When it is, we are looking M2 plus bar M. When it is Mn in 2 plus oxidation state, it is 3d5. Hence it is half filled and highly stable. It is highly stable. Hence the E0 value is more negative. Similarly, take the case of zinc. The value is completely filled, 3d10 4s2. Okay, zinc in 2 plus oxidation state is what? It is 3d10. It is fully filled and stable. Highly stable. So, the E0 value is unexpectedly very negative in the case of manganese and zinc. For nickel it is 3d8 4s2, right? For nickel, the electronic configuration for nickel is what? 3d8 4s2. It is not stable. Then why we will consider it as highly negative? It is because in the case of nickel in 2 plus oxidation state is what? 3d8. For nickel also it have high hydration enthalpy. That is, the hydration enthalpy is highly negative. So the other enthalpies cannot counterbalance the enthalpy of the hydration enthalpy of nickel. Hence it has highly negative electrode potential value. For manganese and zinc it is half filled and highly stable, but for nickel it has delta H hydration is highly negative. Delta H hydration is highly negative, and the other enthalpies cannot counterbalance the hydration enthalpy of nickel. So it is unexpectedly low. The electrode potential is unexpectedly low in the case of nickel. Okay students, we are concluding our today's session. I hope it's clear for you. If you have any doubt, comment below. Thank you and have a nice day.